For nearly a decade, the most wanted man in the world remained invisible. Osama bin Laden did not hide by running. He hid by stopping. After the attacks in the early 2000s, global intelligence agencies expected constant movement. Instead, he chose stillness. This decision shaped everything that followed. The United States intelligence community initially searched for digital traces. They monitored phone calls. They tracked emails. They followed financial transfers. None of it worked. Bin Laden avoided modern communication almost completely. He did not use phones. He did not use the internet. He did not appear in financial systems. This forced intelligence agencies to rethink the problem. They stopped asking where he was communicating. They started asking how he survived without communicating. Every isolated leader still needs contact with the outside world. Food must arrive. Messages must travel. Trust must exist somewhere. This shifted the focus from technology to people. The CIA began studying human networks instead of signals. They reviewed interrogations of captured al-Qaeda members. Most information was fragmented. Much of it was unreliable, but patterns slowly emerged. One role appeared repeatedly across unrelated testimonies. That role was a trusted courier. The courier was described as unusually important. He carried messages personally. He avoided phones. He traveled carefully. His name appeared under different variations. This made identification difficult. Years passed before analysts confirmed his real identity. Once confirmed, the strategy changed again. The CIA no longer searched for bin Laden directly. They searched for the courier. Tracking a human without digital footprints is slow. It requires patience. It requires long observation. It requires accepting uncertainty. Eventually, surveillance teams identified the courier in Pakistan. They followed his movements quietly. No arrests were made. No questions were asked. The goal was not interruption. The goal was direction. The courier led them somewhere unexpected. He traveled to a quiet town called Abbottabad. This location immediately raised questions. Abbottabad was not remote. It was not tribal territory. It was near military institutions. The house the courier visited stood out. It was larger than nearby homes. It had high walls. It had no internet connection. Its residents burned trash instead of leaving it outside. No one inside the compound used phones. Children lived there. Women lived there. But no visitors ever entered. The CIA did not assume bin Laden was there. They assumed something valuable was being protected. Surveillance intensified. Analysts studied daily routines. They measured walking patterns. They observed shadows. They noticed one man who never left the compound. He paced within the walls. He avoided exposure. His height matched bin Laden's known profile. His behavior suggested authority. Still, certainty was impossible. There was no photograph. There was no recording. There was no direct confirmation. At this stage, intelligence became a probability problem. Analysts debated likelihoods rather than facts. Some believed bin Laden was there. Others believed it was a decoy. The risk of being wrong was enormous. Acting on false intelligence would have global consequences. Not acting could allow the target to disappear again. The decision required judgment, not proof. This is where intelligence work differs from investigation. Intelligence rarely offers certainty. It offers convergence, multiple weak signals pointing to the same conclusion. Eventually, leadership was briefed on the assessment. The estimate was not presented as absolute truth. It was presented as the best possible explanation. The question was no longer how to find bin Laden. The question became whether to act. That decision would change history. The final decision was based on incomplete information. There was no confirmation that Osama bin Laden was inside the compound. There was only convergence of evidence. The house behavior was abnormal. The courier's presence was consistent. The hidden resident matched known habits. Leadership evaluated multiple options. A missile strike was considered. That option risked destroying evidence. It also risked civilian casualties. Another option involved Pakistani cooperation. That option risked alerting the target. The final option was a direct raid. A raid offered verification. It also offered identification, but it carried the highest operational risk. The operation required absolute secrecy. Only a small number of officials were informed. Even within the government, details were compartmentalized. The mission was assigned to a special operations unit. The compound was recreated at a training site. Teams rehearsed repeatedly. Every wall was measured. Every room was estimated. Every possible resistance scenario was planned. Intelligence analysts supported rehearsals continuously. They updated assumptions. They refined timing. They adjusted contingencies. No one involved knew for certain who would be found. The helicopters crossed into Pakistan at night. Radar avoidance was critical. Silence was essential. One helicopter experienced mechanical issues upon landing. The mission continued despite the complication. The compound was breached quickly. Residents were secured. Movement inside was methodical. Every step followed rehearsed procedure. On the upper floor, the target was encountered. Identification was immediate based on physical traits. Confirmation followed through facial recognition. The mission objective shifted from search to extraction. Materials were collected rapidly. Computers were seized. Documents were gathered. Hard drives were removed. The operation concluded within minutes. The team departed before local forces arrived. The body was transported for further verification. Multiple identification methods were used. DNA comparison confirmed identity. The assessment reached certainty for the first time. Osama bin Laden was no longer a probability. He was confirmed. The announcement came later. The public learned after the operation was complete. The intelligence community focused on the aftermath. The recovered data became a new intelligence source. Years of isolation had produced an archive. Contacts were identified. Plans were disrupted. Networks were weakened. The operation demonstrated a shift in intelligence practice. Technology alone did not solve the problem. Human behavior revealed the solution. Avoiding technology created patterns. Those patterns became visible over time. The success did not come from speed. It came from patience. It came from restraint. It came from accepting uncertainty. The hunt lasted nearly 10 years. The final answer emerged slowly. There was no single breakthrough moment. There was accumulation. Small observations stacked together. Weak signals reinforced each other. The operation became a case study, not in force, but in persistence, not in surveillance volume, but in selective focus. It showed that disappearance creates its own trace. Total secrecy is unsustainable. Isolation requires support. Support creates exposure. That exposure cannot be fully erased. This is the core lesson intelligence agencies learned. Hiding is not invisibility. It is pattern creation. Patterns can be mapped. Mapping leads to prediction. Prediction enables action. The operation closed a chapter, but it did not end the system that produced it. Intelligence work continues under the same constraints. Uncertainty remains unavoidable. Decisions are still made without full knowledge. Success still depends on judgment. The story of how Osama bin Laden was found is not about secrecy. It is about limits. Limits of hiding. Limits of control. Limits of isolation. In the end, the system worked not because it was perfect, but because it adapted. That adaptation made the difference.